Alright, all praise unto Yahweh Shemi Al Shai. Double honors to the so like it. All praise unto Yahweh Shemi Al Shai. Double honors to the apostles of GMS. On the street prophets will be pushing this truth in sincerity. This is gonna be the second installment of getting into the history and all of that. And just like I said in previous times, man. Um, I do my best to get it as accurately as I physically can do. I apologize for anything that I may say that is controversial, um, in that it is incorrect. And as I always said, and as I said in the sort of sit down I did as concerning the Assyrians, if it's incorrect, hey, correct it. Leave a comment in the in the comment section, and I'll be more grateful to be more correct than to feel that a job is complete and it be out there in the ether and it's an incorrect job. Okay, so if there's any shortfalls within this piece, please put your 2 cents at the bottom, and then everybody can learn off of it. Okay. um, and just as before, I used the video that we did at the camp, a few months back. Me and the brother Yavrokari Kwam, months back as the basis of it, and really I did it for my own benefit, just like how I did in the first one dealing with the Assyrians. This time as well, I've done this for my own benefit. But once I've done and I've completed the project, or I've got to a stage where I feel I'm comfortable with what was going on at the time, namely the time of the Babylonians, and I sort of felt like I needed to do another video on the same topic, but almost doing it off of my own, because when I was doing it, I was sort of being tutored into doing it, but now I sort of feel like I'm comfortable doing it on my own. I'm gonna do it on my own just to make sure that I've got it, and if I have got it, then hey, all praise unto Yahweh Shemi outside. So without much further ado, I've got my documents here. Unfortunately, this is not going to be one of those videos, as I said in the previous one, where you got music and slides and all of that. I'm not one for post production. I once it's done, I let it go out there. Okay. And for you brothers out there that's got a short attention span, just break down the video into 40-minute segments. Okay, so you get to the first 40 minutes, take a breather, do something else. Okay, come back to it in another couple of days when you got the time to deal with it again, and then do the next 40 minutes, because this did to redo the whole, to do the whole history. It took me a while, man. Okay, it took me a long while. I'm not saying it's complete, but to really get into it, you become like a specialist in just that one facet. So I've got it to where it's in a very generic, very good general understanding of what was happening at the time of the Babylonians, and but it's not no specialist in that facet. That comes with time. Okay. So without much further ado, I broke down the history into sort of, and the documents that I had created from what I had studied, the major points that arose. I broke it down into a few segments. So you got these sort of generic information I've got dealing with Babylon. So the rise and fall of Babylon. Okay, the next document was Nebuchadnezzar, the father of Nebuchadnezzar, and then the next document I've got here is the downfall of Judah and exile to Babylon. All right, and then after that, so if we consider that as the sort of the first segment of this video, okay, the first third of this video, then this will be the next section, the next segment, dealing with the kings of Jerusalem, that being Josiah, and his dealings with the Egyptian king Pharaoh Necho, and that goes into something else where the scripture says in the book of Isaiah, "One to them that trust in Egypt," man. That's what Isaiah was talking about, because when we go into this segment of the history, if my memory serves me correct, I think Josiah wanted to get, so Josiah, I don't know, the king that came after him, he had certain dealings with the kings that came after Josiah, because Josiah had three sons, or three or four prominent sons, okay, and all of them came to the throne after him, and also he had one of his grandsons took the throne as well, but he was taken out of place. So you had Josiah, Jehoahaz, which was the son of Josiah. Okay, you had Eliakim, which later became known as Jehoiakim, which was the son of Josiah as well. And then you had Jehoiachin. All right, he reigned 3 months. He was the grandson of Josiah and the son of Jehoiakim. Okay, and then you had Zedekiah, which was the son of Josiah. So you had three sons of Josiah, and they were all wicked, and they all took to the throne after their father Josiah taken to the throne. So I had compiled some information dealing with each individual of those kings. Okay, so I got a document on Jehoiaz and Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin. Okay, and then last but not least, Zedekiah. Okay, and so the last segment of this video is gonna be dealing with the prophet Jeremiah. And I could have done Ezekiel, but I feel like well, the Spirit just let me had it to where I went into Jeremiah. And really, when you go into Jeremiah, man, there was a lot of things happening. Just dealing with looking at Babylon just from the perspective of Jeremiah, man. There's a lot of things that were happening, man. Okay, dealing with the kings that were in place. Okay, I think it was Jehoiakim that was one of the prominent kings that was in place during the time of Jeremiah, and how he had certain prophets coming up to him and telling him, and Jeremiah 28th chapter telling him, look, you're gonna be all right in Babylon. Which that's not such a bad place to start. In fact, if I go to Jeremiah the 28th chapter, that's not such a bad place to start, because that's really like the times that we're living in right now, man. Okay, if you think about, you got IUIC telling different individuals that they can be comfortable in their society and so on and so forth, and how you should be forwardly thinking, and you should be making it to where you have a contingency plan for the next 10 years or whatever. Well, that's nothing new, man. Okay, that's actually nothing new. You had it to where when certain kings were in power during the time of the Babylonians, they were telling the king that the Babylonians wasn't gonna come in and overthrow him, man. Okay, they was telling the king, look, you're gonna be all right, man. Okay, so this is what it says here. And really, when you read the whole thing from the top, now I would go into all of this that's happening here, but I'll add extra 15 minutes to the video, which this is already going to be a considerably long video. Okay, so this is Jeremiah the 28th chapter and the 8th verse, and it says, and the prophets that have been before me. This is Jeremiah speaking, man. Okay, because he had I think the nigga name was Hananiah, right? Right, so I'll read the 11th verse. And Hananiah spake in the presence of all the people, saying, thus saith the Lord, even so we will break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, from the neck of all the nations within the space of 2 years. And the prophet Jeremiah went his way. Okay, so what this dude was saying basically was contrary to what Jeremiah was saying, because Jeremiah was saying, look, the prophets that have been before me, right, and before they prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms of evils and of pestilence, right? The prophets which prophesieth of peace, which is what this dude was doing. Okay, he was prophesying of peace. He was telling to the king, look, in about 2 years, and he was saying Yahweh Shem Yahushai was giving him that spirit to tell the people that. Okay, but Jeremiah, when he said, look, the prophets that have been before me, they did their thing, man, and they didn't prophesy of peace, man. Okay, and it says, which prophesy of peace, when the word of that prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known. Okay, that the Lord have truly sent him. So when this individual was speaking, basically what Jeremiah was saying was, look, when this dude's word comes to pass, then you're gonna know who was the prophet of the Lord. Now, how do we know Jeremiah was a prophet of the Lord? Because everything that he said came to pass, man. Now, notwithstanding, you have certain prophets within the history an individual that comes to mind was the man Nahum. Okay, no, sorry, Salakia, Jonah. Okay, because Jonah was sent to Nineveh. Okay, and he got inside the belly of a large sea creature. Okay, all right, and then once he had got to Nineveh, he did his thing. Okay, but if the people repented, okay, so he prophesied that they was gonna go down if they didn't repent. Now, obviously, they repented, and the Most High suffered that they stay a long time. See, that's not gonna happen in this society, man. Okay, now first and foremost, Esau ain't on a humble, level to where he's gonna humble himself, and the Most High is gonna give him a space of X amount of years. This, the Scripture says that the Lord has set this man's bounds, and he's not gonna exceed those bounds, man. All right. So you had dudes back then, doing the same thing to the ears of the people of the Lord, because he says, hey, this dude went out there into the court and he spoke to the people and said, look, and says, and then the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet after that Hananiah the prophet had broken the yoke from off the neck of Jeremiah, saying, go tell Hananiah, saying, thus saith the Lord, thou hast broken the yoke of wood, but thou shalt make for them yokes of iron. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I have put a yoke of iron upon the necks of all the nations, that they may serve Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon, and they shall serve him, and I have given him the beasts of the field. All right, it says, then the prophet Jeremiah, then said the prophet Jeremiah unto Hananiah the prophet. Okay, and it says, here now, Hananiah, the Lord have not sent thee, okay, but thou makest the people to trust a lie, man. So you got dudes doing the exact same thing right now, man. Okay, you got dudes doing the same thing right now. You're gonna be all right. You're gonna be, because what? Because the spirit of the scoffers is subject unto the scoffers, just like how the spirit of the prophets is subject unto the prophets themselves, man. Okay, so it ain't nothing new that you was gonna have dudes and different individuals out here, okay, basically not preaching the word of the Most High the correct way. Okay, all right. So without much further ado, let me get into this. Okay, like I said, it's not gonna be no 10-minute video, I'm afraid. But hopefully it's of edification and not just null and void. All right. So this is just the first document. Okay, this is basically generic information, and then as what I do with these documents is I get to, and that's why I never really like reading, because if I'm reading a piece of a book, and when I say don't like reading, I mean buying just a random book and you read it and then you do away with it. I like to deal with articles, because I make articles into books, because you start off with a generic piece of information, which is what you're supposed to do anyway. Okay, you start off with a generic piece of information. You might read just the first paragraph of that generic information. There'll be a statement that you don't understand. You're supposed to go and find out what that means, man. Okay, and so then you might have another piece of generic information. Okay, and then you read that, and then you might get to another point where that piece of there's another piece of information or a statement that's made you don't understand. Okay, you do the same thing. Okay, so just off of the first paragraph, you might have three or four or five different corroborating articles just on that first paragraph. You read off of that article, man. Okay, and then you can go back to the article, you go to the next paragraph, and then you read on and so on and so forth. So it might take you a long while to understand the article, but your background information and the information you've learned from whatever that piece of information is going to be thorough, man. Now I'm not saying this is thorough by any means, okay, but I'm saying I've tried to make it as thorough as possible. So this was probably one of the first articles I had gotten into, all right, in trying to understand the history of what was happening there. And there would have been certainly points that I didn't understand, and even now there will be points that I don't understand. But you sort of have to come to a compromise to where, okay, do I need to know that? And then you might because we haven't got time to be reading all of that all the time. You still got to factor in videos as pertaining to other things, man. Okay, so this is probably the first piece of a generic piece of information I got as pertaining to Babylon. So it says the rise and fall of Babylon. Early historians the early The early history of Babylon is shrouded in mystery. It says, and some of these articles is gonna have some bones in there, so you gotta you gotta fill out. I'll try to fit out as much bones as I can. Okay, but I'm not the wisest man in Israel, so you gotta do your best to filter it out as well, man. I'm not saying this is the God's honest truth. These pieces of uh, uh, history that I'm reading, but certainly when I get into these scriptures, that should be on point. Okay, so it says the first mention is in the Bible, or rather more, the first mention in the Bible is the record of Genesis, the 10th chapter and the 8th verse. I don't, you can go to that yourself. The name's Nimrod, the grandson of Ham, as the founder of the city, right, in the dim prehistoric past. It says its name was derived from the latter experience revealed in Genesis the 11th chapter, where you had the languages confused. Right? It says where the inhabitants of the land of Shinar, that the southern portion of Mesopotamia, are recorded as building a tower designed to reach the heavens. This may have been the beginning of the practice of building towers with religious significance, such as the tower as ziggurat. Okay, it says, and designating an artificial mound of brick and soil elevated above the surrounding terrain. Okay, so that's just the generic piece, and then they quote the scripture which is in the book of Genesis, the 11th chapter and the 3rd verse. Right, in the interest of time, some of these precepts I'm gonna skip over. It says the scriptures record the Lord's how He judged the people and confounded the languages. Right, with the results of the city and the tower were left unfinished. Okay, and you can read that for yourself as well. Now, skipped over to the next paragraph. It says, although the city of Babylon does not rise to prominence until the 1830s, okay, 1830 BC, all right, not 1830 as in 200. Someone will get stupid and or say, oh look, you're talking about 200 whatever years ago. No, this is 1830 BC. Okay, the area in which it is located, called Babylonia, has a long history. Okay, early civilizations near the site of the ancient right in the lower Babylonia dates from the 4th millennium BC. So they go into something else there. Okay, now let's skip over to the next paragraph. It says the history of Babylonian proper, known as Old Babylonian, right, the period of 1830 to 1550 BC, included the brilliant reign of Hammurabi, right, who was famous, whose famous code was discovered in 1901, right, our modern era. Okay, Babylonian was the next invaded by Kassites, right, in the period of 1550 to 1169 BC, right, and it says this was followed by the dynasty of the Isin, right, or Isin, right, in 1169 to 1039 BC, whose kings were native Babylonians, and in the period of the 1100s to 625, right, rather more in the period from the 1100s to 1625 BC, the land suffered various invasions, including that of Assyria. Because remember, the predecessors to the Babylonians were the Assyrians, and they and it says there in 729 BC, Tiglath-Pileser, the Assyrian king, became king of Babylon, right, and later in 689, attacked by Sennacherib, which was Sennacherib being the grandson of Tiglath-Pileser, because he was the son of Sargon II. All right, attacked by Sennacherib, Babylon was destroyed by fire. It was rebuilt by Ashadod. Right, it was finally wrested from Assyrian around 625 BC, and when the Neo-Babylonian Empire was founded by Nabopolassar, the father of Nebuchadnezzar, with the help of the Medes, and Nineveh was destroyed in 612 BC, and Necho, who was the king of Egypt, and I'll deal with a little bit with Necho, the king of Egypt, right, was defeated in 605 BC. The stage was now set for the brilliant reign of Nebuchadnezzar, which included the earlier conquering of Jerusalem, which I'm going to get into. Okay, the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem, because that's what we're all concerned about. When you read these little historical pieces, they'll tell you that this Babylonian king, he went out there and he conquered these, and sometimes that's relevant, but most of the time we just want to deal with what they were dealing with as concerning the house of Judah, because Judah was still sort of there, and had skirmishes of the I believe, I might be incorrect in saying this, but I'm pretty confident that you would have had certain skirmishes of the northern tribe. Now I might be incorrect in saying that, but I know for certain that within the house of Judah, rather, well, not within the house of Judah, but what was left was Judah, because Samaria had been taken down by the Assyrians. But I know for certain that you still had all the 12 tribes there, because it's mentioned that within the book of James, okay, and I believe also in the book of Acts as well, it mentions that. Not that's something extra. You don't have to take my word for that. Okay, it says the stage was now set for the brilliant reign of Nebuchadnezzar, which included the earlier conquering of Jerusalem in 606 BC. It says an ultimate captivity of its inhabitants and the destruction of its city itself. All right, and now it's going to go into the prophecies of Isaiah concerning Babylon. It says, apart from a reference to a Babylonish garment in Joshua the 7th chapter and 21st verse, there is no biblical reference to Babylon after Genesis the 11th until the great prophecies of Isaiah, okay, of which I went into. It says Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel and Daniel unfolded the Most High Yahweh Shemiah's plan. So I chose to go with Jeremiah. I could have done Isaiah. I could have done Ezekiel. 9 times out of 10, you're gonna get when we're dealing with modern day Babylon, you're gonna get prophecies coming from any one of those. But when what you find out with the scriptures is the Most High has these things very repetitious, so you get a better understanding, man. So you really, when you get into it, you're repeating it because you're reading from different books, but it's so repetitious, man. It becomes a part of you, and it becomes joint unto you. And if you know anything about how Israel as a people learns, it's all about repetitions, man. Doing stuff over and over again. Okay. So when you go into Isaiah, you get a gist of what was happening in Jeremiah. When we go into Jeremiah, obviously you get the perspective and what it was, what each individual was living with and living around, and the situations that they had to go through. Okay. But certainly you get the very essence of what you need to understand about the history. You get a good gist, reading any one of those different books, man. Okay, and it says in Ezekiel and Daniel unfolded the Most High's plans for the ancient city. It says most biblical prophecies related to Babylon are furthermore, prophecies relating to Babylon are in relation to the captivity of Yahweh Shemiah's revelations to Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel concerning the ultimate end of the captivity both of Israel and Babylon. It says most remarkable, however, are the prophecies of Isaiah's delivery a century before Babylon risen to power. So when you go into Isaiah was a predecessor to Jeremiah by a period of 100 years. Now Isaiah, was it Isaiah? I forget the exact scripture, but there's an account where Hezekiah had some of the forerunners of the Assyrian kingdom, and they had come to the city walls, and they was basically demanding the surrender of Jerusalem to the Assyrians, man. Now this was dealing with the sons, one of the sons, I believe it was Sennacherib, the son of Sargon II, and he was demanding the surrender of Hezekiah, man. And he was, and they was talking all kind of greasy matters. They were saying, look, don't let Hezekiah fool you into trusting in Yahweh Shemiah. Come, serve us, man, and so we don't have to have this war. Now what had happened was the Most High then sent a death angel amidst all of them people, right, them Assyrians, and killed all of them Assyrians. So to where the prophecy where it says, the Lord's gonna deliver you, but He ain't gonna deliver you when with neither bow no arrow or anything like that. Okay, it was fulfilled, man. Okay, so when Isaiah, when they're talking about Isaiah here, them prophecies about Babylon, they had that was done, about a period of, they're saying here about a period of 100 years before they actually came into being the prominent power upon the face of the planet Earth. Okay, so I carry on reading this article now. It says um bear with me, let me just get my bearings. It says the outstanding chapters in Isaiah's prediction is Isaiah the 13th chapter, the 14th, and the 47th chapter. And what you're gonna find out also is a lot of these prophecies, okay, they'll have you go into Isaiah the 13th chapter, the scripture says the Most High is gonna stir up the Medes, and that did happen. The Most High stirred up the Medio-Persian Empire to take down the Babylonian Empire. But you go down to the end of Isaiah the 13th chapter, if I pull it up right quick, Isaiah 13 and 1, okay, and I go to it, all right, and I go to the end, okay, so it says here, the Babylon, furthermore, Isaiah 13th chapter 19th verse says, Babylon, the glory of kingdoms and the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when the Most High Yahweh Shimei Shai overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and says, it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch his tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. But the wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and they shall dwell there, and the satyrs shall dance there. And it says, and the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and the dragons in their pleasant palaces, and her time is to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. So when we're dealing with this, we're dealing with a situation where that land was never inhabited ever again. Okay, a Sodom and Gomorrah type situation. Oh, it says that. Okay, it says that. So it says here, it shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Now we know the modern day of name for the Babylonian land is I believe it's Iraq. Don't quote me on that, but certainly I know that the land is inhabited right now because the elders have at sundry times have quoted this and and saying that didn't actually happen to Babylon. Now Babylon was taken out of power, but the land was not completely uninhabitable. Okay, because when you say never shall be inhabited, that's another way of saying that is uninhabitable. That's what's going to happen to America. And all of these historians conclude, all right, is that there is a future Babylon, and I believe it might say even in this article, there is a future Babylon, a prophecy, namely the daughter of Babylon, and there is what the things that happened as pertaining to the ancient Babylonians. So a lot of these precepts, right? A lot of these prophecies are twofold. And that's the beautiful thing about these scriptures, man. All right, because you go into it, you reread it, and it will apply, and it applies to the history, what happened back then, which was prophecy before it happened, obviously. Okay, but certain things didn't play out like that. So for instance, they come from a far country, even from the end of heaven. Okay, so you're talking about Russia being one complete side of the earth and America being on the other side, and it says the weapons and of his indignation to destroy the whole land. Those are ICBM nuclear missiles, man. Okay, so I certainly, when it says the daughter of Babylon and certain parts of these scriptures, you're really dealing with America now, which is the daughter of Babylon, which is the modern day Babylon, man. Okay, and also when you go into the book of Revelations, well, Revelation plays out after Babylon has been destroyed. Okay, because we're dealing now with the Roman Empire, with the presence of the Romans, man, the Edomites, and that was what 2 kingdoms after, because you would have had the Babylonians, the Medo-Persians, and then you had the Greeks, and then the Romans. All right. And then, round about the time of the Romans and round about prior to 70 AD and so on and so forth, okay, you had it to where, the Lord was on the scene and the prophets were on the scene and all of that. So when the man John wrote the book of Revelations, he knew Babylon was destroyed, but he was referring to the daughter of Babylon, which is what now as America, man. Okay, right? We know it as hell. All right, so it says here, outstanding in Isaiah's predictions, Isaiah the 13th chapter, the 14th chapter, and the 47th chapter. And if I go to Isaiah the 47th chapter, I actually believe it says the daughter of Babylon. Okay, so let's go to it right quick. Right, yeah, come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Okay, now let's go and carry on with this article. It says, in the predictions of Isaiah have to go with Babylon's ultimate destruction in the day after. Here we go. So it says it here within this article. It says the prediction of Isaiah, right, have to do with Babylon's ultimate destruction in the day of the Lord. The near and far view are often mingled with Isaiah the 13th chapter. It says the destruction of Babylon is pictured as Isaiah the 13th from 1 to 11 as part of the Most High's program to punish the entire world. So it's this historic conquering of Babylon by the Medo-Persians is mentioned, right? Behold, I will stir up the Medes, right, against them, and they will not regard their silver, etc., etc. It says the prophecy seems to refer to the far view that again excited, that is the destruction of Babylon in relation to the second coming of Yahweh Shai, right? All right, here it is, and it's declared and says, and it shall never be inhabited, which I had quoted for you. Okay, all right, and it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, etc., etc. It says, as far as historic fulfillment is concerned, it is obvious from both scripture and history that the verses have not been literally fulfilled. The city of Babylon continued to flourish after the Medes had conquered it, and though its glory dwindled, especially after the control of the Medo-Persians, right, ended in 325 BC and 323 BC, of which 325 is the time of Alexandra, right? It says the city continued in some form of substance right up until AD 1000 and did not experience a sudden termination such as anticipated within prophecy, right? So what's this anticipation of Babylon's destruction? Well, we're dealing with America, man. All right. So as we go through all of this information, man, although we're dealing with history, man, they say a good understanding of history lets you know what's going to happen out there within the future, especially if you're dealing with anything as fundamental as biblical prophecy. You can even apply that same theory to the monetary system, okay? Because if you understand the history of the monetary system, you understand what's going to happen in the future markets, man. Okay, trends, okay. Yeah, you take Nike for instance. Nike does nothing but bring back old sneakers, man. Now they're trying to bring back the Cortez. They tried to bring back, the Huaraches the last season. So what are they gonna bring next out? Well, the Air Force is gonna be popular, whatever. Air Maxes, whatever, man. They ain't bringing socks, Nike socks back. Those weren't popular, man. Damn moon shoes. Okay, so he says the interpretation has been made more difficult by varying meanings of Babylon itself. So they go into something else, within that. Okay, so let's see if there's any more important information to bring out within this piece here. So looks like that's pretty much the first article. Okay, I'll read this, but I really didn't want to touch the stuff dealing with Jeremiah. I wanted to do that in a further segment, but I'll do it anyway. So this is still dealing with the same article. It says, hey, the prophecies of Jeremiah concerning Babylon. The prophet Jeremiah, like Isaiah, devotes 2 long chapters to the prediction of Babylon's ultimate judgment in Jeremiah, the 50th chapter and the 51st verse. Okay, so let's go into that in the book of Jeremiah, the 50th chapter, the first verse, and 51. It says, and if the prophecies of Isaiah are remarkable anticipation of Babylon's rise to power and the captivity of Judah 100 years before it actually occurred, the prophecies of Jeremiah are notable because they were delivered at the peak of Babylon's power, when it seemed most unlikely that the great nation would fall. And it says Babylon is pictured, and that's like what we're doing now. When this word started coming out, really, it was like the peak of America. And as far as these assholes is concerned, when we're telling them about the destruction of their kingdom, man, they're like, what is this guy talking about? The money system's all fucked up. I don't really know. What are they talking about? American go to war with Russia? What are they talking about? Okay? Because as far as these people are concerned, they're peak, man. They're in that euphoria, man. They're in that economic euphoria, man. Okay, rates are ridiculously low. Okay, they could buy houses, they could buy cars. They're doing okay as far as they're concerned. But as far as the Most High is concerned, as just like how it says in the book of Amos, the 9th chapter and 8th verse, behold, the eyes of the Lord power upon the sinful kingdom. He's watching their ignorance, their wickedness. He's watching all of that, man. And he's gonna drop. Doth not the scripture say in the book of First Thessalonians, the 5th chapter and the 1st verse, right? For you know that the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night. When they shall say peace and safety, then shall be sudden destruction, man. And they're saying peace and safety, man. So you're gonna have sudden destruction pretty soon, man. Okay. All right. It says, and if the prophecies of Isaiah are remarkable for their anticipation of Babylon's rise to power, right, and the captivity of Judah 100 years before it actually happened, the prophecies of Jeremiah are notable. Because they were delivered at the peak of Babylon's power when it seemed most unlikely the great nation would fall. It says Babylon is pictured as being punished because of its cruel treatment of Israel. Okay, and this can be mentioned within Jeremiah, the 50th chapter and the 17th verse. So let's read a little. Should we read a little bit of this? Okay, I'll finish the Right, yeah, let's read this. So this is Jeremiah the 58th chapter and the 1st verse. So you got the premise of what was happening from this article. It says, the word of Yahweh by Shimei Shai, when it's in all caps, is Yahweh. Okay, Yahweh by Shimei Shai. Okay, spake the word of the Lord, Yahweh, spake unto against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by the prophet Jeremiah. It says, declare ye among all nations, publish and set up a standard. Publish and conceal not. Okay, what are these individuals doing when they're telling you to be forwardly thinking, to be upwardly mobile? That's concealing. You are concealing the word of the Lord, because the word of the Lord clearly tells you that this is what's going to happen to the modern day Babylon. Okay, and say Babylon is taken. Bel, which is one of those principal. If I go to tools, okay, let's go to Baal. Bel, okay, I believe it's one of those Babylonian gods, okay. All right. Actually, that's not what I wanted to do. That's not how I wanted to do it. I should be able to click on it, and it will give me the. No, did it wrong again. Slakia, bear with me. Right, so it says Bel, and I should be able to click on that bit. Right, that should be the correct thing now. And it says here, Lord, a chief Babylonian deity, okay, and you're gonna have the same result for Marduk, or Marduk, okay, or Marodak, and it says here a chief deity of the Babylonians in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, so let's go back onto Jeremiah the 50th chapter, and let's close this off now. Okay, so it says here, declare ye among the Gentiles and publish and set up a standard and conceal not. Babylon is taken, Bel is confounded, Merodach is broken in pieces, and her idols are confounded. Her images are broken in pieces. Okay, so all of them, these, you put it into modern day terms, all of these people's idols and all of that, man, it's gonna be like that. They're gonna be confounded in the day of the Lord, because here it is, these idols and the people that push them idols gonna be. We're telling you, oh look, Caesar Borgia or Jesus is gonna save you, man. Don't worry about that loan. Don't worry about that subprime mortgage that you don't actually have the finance to pay for. Don't worry, Jesus is gonna help you out with that. Well, Yahushua ain't gonna help you out with that, because Yahushua said your mind ain't supposed to be within this society, man. He said you're supposed to be living day to day, man. Okay, so you're gonna be confounded when all hell breaks loose, because your mind is gonna be so set fast, right, into maintaining the so-called lifestyle, because it's not actually a lifestyle, because there's no life part of it. There's no. This is slavery, mate. Okay, working 50 odd working to the level that you can't see your children, right? That's why people say time, or how time flies so much, because you're at work all the goddamn time, right? That's why time seems to fly so fast. Now it's a blessing to us, the men of the Lord, because this is some piece of shit kingdom, man. When a man has to walk down the street, okay, you be scoping, hey, we all men, you be checking them women out, man. Now you kind of have to be, well, I gotta be more lay reserved than that, because that might be a dude. Okay, they're making these, these dudes look like completely like women, and she doesn't have to tell you that she's a woman, man. So hey, I pray her by Shimi Al I never have to meet no individual like that, man. Okay, let alone, hey, I ain't even gonna say it, man. But you get the, you get the gist of what I'm saying. That goes to show you that this place is Babylon, man. Because that's even great confusion. You can't distinguish between a man and a woman, right? Because a damn dude, right, decided that he actually feels like he was born a woman, so he decides to have some goddamn sex change operation. And that pisses me off. I like women, man. I like women. That puts a factor in there that you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't have to factor in there, man. Okay. I'm not saying brothers don't like women, but certain brothers have some specific needs. But I joke around, I kid, but the point is serious, man. Okay, so this is the 3rd chapter. It says, "For out of the north they cometh up against her, which shall make the land desolate." Talking about the Medo-Persians, and none shall dwell therein, and they shall remove, and they shall depart, both man and beast. And it says, in those days and in that time the Lord, right, saith the Lord, the children of Israel shall come, and they of Judah together shall go weeping, and they shall go and shall seek Yahweh their power, man. Okay, because and this is sort of the side of the history that I really will probably get into way, if we're still in this kingdom, then I might retouch on it at some later date. But I'll certainly do the Medo-Persian Empire next, and then the Greeks, and then the Romans, and then I'll probably go back to the Assyrians and pick up the bits that maybe I wasn't so sure about, or maybe I wasn't too clear on, and I'll do another video, and so on and so forth. So almost in a rotational cycle to try and get these information out there better, not only just for myself, right, but for everybody in my environment, man. Because this is a team effort, man. Okay, it's a team effort. That's why the scripture says iron sharpeneth iron, man. So the things that I'm not tight in, brothers gonna sharpen that, and the stuff that brothers may necessarily not be so tight in, I would hope certainly that if Yahweh Shemi outside mercy upon you, I can tighten it up for them too, man. Okay, and it says, and they shall ask, and right, the way to Zion, right, with their faces thitherward, saying, come, let us join ourselves unto Yahweh Shemi Shai in the perpetual covenant, that shall not be forgotten. It says, my people have been a lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. Now let's read that again and really think about what it's talking about, man. And it says, their shepherd has caused them to go astray, right? And it says, and they have turned them away on the mountains, and they're gone from the mountains to the hill, right? And they have gotten, right, and they have forgotten their resting place. So you visualize a flock of sheep, and they're looking for a home and all of that, man, right? And you got it to where these individuals saying, look, home is here in America, or home is Africa. Because you got them Kemet dudes saying, look, home, Mother Africa, and Rastafarians dudes talking about Mother Africa and all of that. That's like unto what it's saying here, man. They've forgotten their resting place, man. Our resting place is Jerusalem. You got it to where it's rat infested right now, man. Okay, right, we're gonna have to call that spiritual pest control, all right. In that Yahweh Shemi Shai is gonna get them nukes, which is them spiritual pest controls, and get them rats out of that land. Okay, it says, and all that have devoured them and their adversaries, right? We offend not. Said we offend not. Okay, and that's the so-called white man right now, because the so-called white man will have you believe that he's not offending. He, as far as he's concerned, all right, as long as we as long as he pumps that abominable food amongst us, right, he's all right, man. Okay, he doesn't offend. I see the Mosai, the foolishness of the Mosai is wiser than the mess. The Mosai is recording all of that, man. Okay, it says the habitation of it, and it says, against the Lord, the habitation of justice, even the Lord, Yahweh Shemi Shai, the hope of their father, right? Remove out of the midst Babylon, and go forth, right, of the land of the Chaldeans, and be as the goats before the flocks. It says, for lo, I will raise up and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations. Now wait, hold on a minute. I thought it was just the Medo-Persians that done came up. Now, really, when you go into the Medo-Persians, they would have had armies from all over. Hell, you would have had Jakes, right, taking down, them different jigs. That's just how militaries work, man. You get people, you conquer different places where you got different people over there. So you would have had it to where the Medo-Persian Empire had had you know military personnel from all over the world, right? From all over all of the 18 nations. But ultimately, it comes down to this one thing, man. Okay, this, when we're dealing with modern day prophecy, man, we know that for a certain amount of time, you got NATO and the US and so on and so forth. They're gonna be allied, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, is them nations are gonna turn against the whole, as pertaining to the scriptures, man. So you must forgive me. I'm going back and forth in terms of timing, but you really, you should know how this thing works, man. Okay, you should know how this thing works, man. We just go in the spirit, man. Okay, it says, and Chaldea shall be a spoil, and all that spoil shall be satisfied, saith the Lord. And it says, because you were glad, because you rejoiced, or you destroyers of mine heritage, because you are grown fat as the heifers of grass, and the bellows and bellow as bulls. And that's Esau right now, because Esau is fully satisfied himself in the destruction of the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans. He is full. That gets him off. Okay, he gets off on that, man. Oh, look at these niggas. Look, they're killing each other. Ha ha ha. That's Esau's thing, man. Okay, all right, but back then you would have had it to where the Babylonians, they were getting off of the fact that they had taken down the children of Jerusalem, man. Okay, hell, you had it to where this dude Nebuchadnezzar, he made a god to himself, man, and he made all people upon the face of the earth worship that god. And then you had it to where the account where Daniel and his contemporaries, they were like, oh, look, man, we worship Yahweh Shem Yahweh. We ain't, that's just that's the elements. We made those elements. You want me to worship the same elements that Yahweh Shem Yahweh gave us the power to create? Because when you go back into the book of Genesis, the first chapter, it tells you that the Elohim, that Yahweh's Elohim, right? The Most High's powers created the earth, man. Okay. So, hey, under the charge of the Most High, man. So, they were in the spirit. They were saying, look, we ain't going to worship that. And just like how we got it right now, you got it to where dudes are saying worship Caesar Borgia, and you got it to where Nate's saying worship Jesus Christ. We ain't dealing with that, man. We got a living power. Caesar Borgia ain't going to come up from the dead and try, help out the Negro, Hispanic, and Native American neighborhood, man. We're actually telling you who's going to help out the Negro and Hispanic neighborhood. And we ain't talking about some neighborhood. We're talking about the kingdom, man. That's what we keep on forgetting. Nate is dealing with a community. We're dealing with the kingdom, man. Okay? All right, I might have to do a video just on that. All right? So to read a little bit more of this. See if there's any more prominent pieces to bring out. So you can really read that for yourself, man. That goes... that goes in, man. Okay, that goes in, man. Got 46 verses there. You can do a whole sit down. Okay, so let me carry on with these articles. So this is the segment where it says prophecies of Jeremiah concerning Babylon. It says the prophet Jeremiah, like Isaiah, devotes 2 long chapters, all right, to predicting Babylon's ultimate judgment and destruction, says Jeremiah 50, which I've just read a little bit of, and Jeremiah the 51st chapter. It says, if the prophecies of Isaiah are remarkable for their anticipation of Babylon's rise to power and the captivity of Judah 100 years before it actually occurred, the prophecies of Jeremiah are notable because they were delivered at the peak of Babylon's power, when it seemed most unlikely that the great nation would fall. They're saying great nation, greatly wicked. Okay, it says Babylon is pictured as being punished because of its cruel treatment of Israel. And like I said, I'm flipping back into time, back in what's going to happen in the future and what happened in the past, because ultimately Esau's cruel judgment of the people of the Most High is going, that's going to bring about the most hell that's ever been seen upon the face of the earth, man. Okay, practically all prediction of Jeremiah's seem to relate. Rather more practically, all the prediction of Jeremiah seems to relate to the fall of Babylon by the attack of the Medes and the Persians. This is only occasionally they seem to be referenced to the future ultimate destruction, right? As in Jeremiah the 51st chapter and the 62nd verse. It says the prophecy of predicting the fall of Babylon at the hands of the Medes and the Persians are graphically fulfilled approximately 65 years later and recorded in the book of Daniel, the 5th chapter. So let's go to the book of Daniel, the 5th chapter. All right. All right, so this it says here, Daniel 5:1 says, Belshazzar the king made a great feast, right, to 1,000 of his lords, and they drank wine, right, before thousands. And it says Belshazzar, and Belshazzar, it says Belshazzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and the silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem. It says, and the kings and his princes and his wives and his concubines might drink therein, that they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the Most High, right, which was at Jerusalem, and the kings and the priests and his wives and his concubines drank in them. Okay, which was he was feeling real proud, right? Then you think about, oh, look what my father did. Let's drink out of that. Okay, and it says, and they drank wine and praised their gods, lowercase, right? The gods of gold and silver, and brass, iron, wood and stone. It says, in the same hour, right, the fourth came forth fingers of a man's hand and were over against the candlestick upon the plaister, right, of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. It says, and the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts were troubled him, so that his joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote against one against another. Right, so this guy was, how they say in the streets, he was shook up. Nigga was shook up, man. Okay, and the king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spoke and says to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof, be clothed in scarlet, and a chain of gold about his neck, right, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then came in the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing, nor make known to the king the interpretation thereof. And it says, then was the king Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance changed within him, and his lords were astonished. Now the queen, by reason of the word of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house, and the queen spake unto the king, right, like forever, says, let not thy thoughts trouble thee, let not thy countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy power, right, powers, and in the days of thy father, light and understanding. Okay, it says, like the wisdom of the gods was found in him. All right, and it says, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar thy father, the king I say thy father, made master of the magicians, astrologers, and the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. So as for as much as in excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpretation of dreams, and showing hard sentences and dissolving of doubt, were in the same Daniel, whom the king surnamed Belshazzar. All right, it says, and now let Daniel be called, right, and he will show the interpretation. It says, then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spoke and said unto Daniel, art thou Daniel, right, which art of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry? He says, I've even heard of thee, and that the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that the light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. It says, and now the wise men, right, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known unto me the interpretation thereof, but they could not. All right, it says, and I've heard thee that thou canst make interpretations and dissolve doubts. Right, now thou canst read the writing and make known the interpretation thereof. Right, thou shalt be clothed in scarlet and chains. So let's read. Let's get to the point of it. It says, and this is the writing that was written, many tekel 1,000, right, This is the interpretation of things. It says, many, right? The Most High has numbered thy kingdom and is finished, and to kill that are weighted in balances and are found wanting. It says, Perez, all right, that kingdom is divided and is given into the Medes and the Persians. And the commandment of Belshazzar then commanded Belshazzar, right, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet and put a chain of gold about his neck and made a proclamation concerning, and he should be the third ruler of the kingdom. And in that night Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, was slain, and Darius the Mede took the kingdom, being 62 years old. So 32 when he took that. So it was pretty much self-explanatory what was happening there. All right, so let's move on to the next piece within this article. It says the major attention is devoted to the captivity of Judah in the prophecies of both Jeremiah and Ezekiel. Right, there's almost a constant reference to the Babylonian captivity captivity of Judah and Jerusalem in the beginning of the 20th chapter. And it says numerous references also are found in Ezekiel. Much of Jeremiah's ministry was to his own generation, right, as he predicted the downfall of Jerusalem and the victory of the Babylonians army. All right, and it says, and which he was telling that to one of the kings, man, and the king didn't want to concede the fact that he was telling him truth, man. Okay, you can read about that within the book of Jeremiah. Man. There's a lot was happening in the book of Jeremiah, but I'll get to that. I'm jumping the gun a little bit right now. It says Jeremiah is seen as the true the true prophet of the Most High, in contrast to the false prophets who had predicted the victory of Babylon, because you had individuals out there. Let's get it within the scriptures. Oh no, sorry, I pulled it out within the book of Jeremiah, the 28th chapter, on the first verse, because you had dudes that were actually out there saying, look, you're gonna be all right. Babylon ain't gonna take you down. All right, everything's gonna be okay, man. And they were false prophets, man. Okay, and Jeremiah himself suffered affliction and imprisonment. Okay, Jeremiah the 37th chapter, because you got a lot of dudes out here that will have you believe when these coppers put you in the prison or they put you in the jam where you're going through certain situations. Now that the Most High, the Spirit of the Most High ain't happening to you. Look, man, the prophets of the Lord have been killed, man. Okay, that's actually in the history. That actually should boost your spirit up to where you believe you're even more of the Spirit of the Most High, man. But you got guys out here that will have you believe that, when bad things happen, okay, if you're a bum or whatever, you actually, the Spirit of the Lord ain't dealing with you, man. Don't you know the love of this world is enmity with the Most High, man? Okay, that's the scriptures that they can't get their heads around, man. All right, supposing gain is godliness. All right, it says the most important where Jeremiah's prophecies concerning the duration of the captivity designated as 70 years in Jeremiah the 25th chapter and the 11th verse. So let's go to Jeremiah the 25th chapter and the 11th verse. All right, so Jeremiah 25 and 11, it says, and this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. All right, so that's pretty much self-explanatory. And it says a prominent theme of Jeremiah's prophecies were prediction against Egypt, in which he anticipated that Nebuchadnezzar would conquer Egypt. All right, and if I'm not mistaken in my understanding of what had happened, and I'll confirm that when I read these different pieces, you had certain wicked kings after Josiah, right? Either whether it was the one grandson of Josiah, which was Jehoiachin, or his three sons, Jehoiakim, Jehoahaz, and who's the other one? Zedekiah. Okay, they were all wicked. You had it to where I forget exactly what individual it was, but they certainly trusted in the power of Egypt because they thought Egypt was more prominent than Babylon was. But the Most High certainly showed them, and I believe there was even battles between the Egyptians and the Babylonians, and pretty much they were taken down. I think that was the Battle of Kirkemish, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, don't quote me on that though. All right, do your own research, do your own video on it. Okay, and it says, and as a traditional enemy of Israel, Egypt was thus to experience the God's judgment. So actually, I had misquoted there because I had misquoted because Necho, the king of Egypt, had Jerusalem basically under subjection. Okay, they were they was known as a vassal. He set up certain kings that were underneath him, man. Was it vassal? I think the technical term is vassal king. So the statement I just made there is null and void. Okay, it says, as a traditional enemy of Israel, Egypt was thus to experience the Most High's judgment in the form of the coming power of Babylon. It says Jeremiah devotes considerable scriptures to this theme in Jeremiah the 43rd chapter and the 10th verse, right, the 44th, and sends a message to the Jews in Egypt, right, in which he predicts that their attempts to escape the power of Babylon will not only result in destruction. So Salakia had mixed two things that were happening there. What we had was this: Jerusalem was in subject underneath the Egyptians, and the king Necho had set up certain vassal kings. Now you had people that were living in Jerusalem, okay, that thought, look, the Babylonians can't take us down. Okay, we're vassal underneath the Egyptians. Okay, we're underneath their thumb, their ruling thumb. Why don't we go out there and escape amidst those Hamites? Okay, and we're gonna be living all right. But what they realized was gonna happen in the future was that the Babylonians will not only take down Jerusalem, they was gonna take down the Egyptians as well. So their trust that they had put in Egypt, that was gonna be put to flight, man. Okay, this is the prophecies of Ezekiel concerning Babylon. All right, I won't touch on it. So pretty much everything that we needed to that I wanted to touch on was touched on within this article. Now I'll just finalize it with this last bit of it, this last segment of it. It says the fall of Babylon. The fall of Babylon, the Babylonian Empire came suddenly when, and that's prophetic right there. He said it came suddenly. And what do we know about the modern day Babylon? This judgment is gonna come suddenly, man. Okay, it's gonna come suddenly. Excuse me. It says the fall of Babylon, the Babylonian Empire came suddenly when the Medes and the Persians overran the city of Babylon in the night, right, in an attack in 539. Okay, and we've just read about that within the book of Daniel, the fifth chapter. Okay, it says prior to this event, the Babylonian Empire had already fallen on evil days. It says when Nebuchadnezzar died in 962, he was succeeded by his son Amel-Marduk. It says he was assassinated only 2 years later, and in 560 BC, Neri-Gislau took the throne. It says when he died in 556 BC, right, after only 4 years' reign, he was succeeded by his son, who was assassinated shortly after that, right, and then Nabonidus then assumed power, right, appointing his son Belshazzar as co-ruler. It says in it, and it was this Belshazzar who held the ungodly feast in Daniel the 5th chapter, which we've just read on. So that concludes the sort of generic part of the history. Okay, you really could end it there, but let's go in a little bit more. So I wanted to deal with little bits dealing with the prehistory that was happening with Babylon, and the individual that I went into was Nebuchadnezzar. So I'm gonna quickly go through this particular article, and again, excuse any bones that I may fail to filter through in these different articles, because I do know when Esau pushes this information forth, sometimes he puts them bones in there, man. Okay, it says Nebuchadnezzar, the first ruler of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, allied with the Medes and Scythians, he overthrew the Assyrian Empire, destroying Nineveh in 612. It says, as prophesied within the book of Nahum, the 2nd chapter and the 3rd chapter. Okay, Zephaniah, the second chapter and the 13th verse, and Zephaniah, the 2nd chapter and the 15th verse. And it says, the destruction earlier prophesied by Jonah was averted by Nineveh's repentance. You can read about that in the book of Jonah, the 3rd chapter. It says when Pharaoh Necho came to aid the Assyrians, all right, Josiah the king, right, opposed him, and he killed him at Megiddo. Now, when we deal with the king Josiah and sort of the second part of this, I'll deal with I'll deal with the Battle of Carchemish, where the king, the righteous King Josiah was killed. Okay, but that was really just to set in motion a chain of events that had four successive was it four successive no three successive rulers that were wicked, man. All right, was it three or four? Four successive rulers that were wicked, right? Which concluded within Jerusalem being ultimately just destroyed, man. Okay, he says Nebuchadnezzar died in Babylon about the time his son Nebuchadnezzar II was engaged in the Battle of Carchemish. It says Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, was the first king of the Chaldean dynasties and the father of Nebuchadnezzar II, and was originally a petty Chaldean chieftain, right, in the southern Babylonian, right, and he, but put to death. But at the death of the king Ashurbanipal of Assyria, Nebuchadnezzar became king of Babylon and quickly thereafter seized Nepal and Uruk, all right, and in a few years he had control of all Babylonia and made significant alliances with Cyrexis, king of the Medes. And it says in 615 he failed to seize Ashur, but when it fell, right, the Medes shared the spoils. It says to bind a treaty, right, between Nebuchadnezzar and Cyrexis, the king of the Medes, right. The latter gave his daughter Amytis, right, in marriage to Nebuchadnezzar's son Nebuchadnezzar. Right. After this treaty with Cyrexis, there was no fear of the mountain tribes, and Nebuchadnezzar was able to compel the more former vassals of Assyria as far as Pog, it says, and Cilicia, to pay tribute to him. His armies were well trained in the Assyrian methods of fighting. All right, and if you if you go into the video I did about the Assyrians, you find out the style of the fighting that the Assyrians were getting into, man. Okay, that was like the peak of military fighting that was there at the time, man. Okay, it would have been like the Marines of then, or whatever is considered as top fighting men in this kingdom. Okay, they were at their peak. Okay, so when the Babylonian father to Nebuchadnezzar, he learned all of that and he applied it to his own people, man. Okay, and successively all of these militaries became stronger and stronger, man. But the splendor of their kingdoms decreased. Okay, to now where you got this bullshit ass kingdom, but they got one of the greatest militaries that's ever existed, in the history of time, man. Okay, but that was because Esau's blessing is the sword, man. All right. So let me just conclude this. All right, and it says, right, in 606 BC, he took the Euphrates front, where Egypt, right, hold on the Carchemish, Egypt's hold on Carchemish posed a threat to the entire western part of the newly won empire. It says Pharaoh Necho II of Egypt had invaded Palestine and Syria in order to get his share of the fallen Assyrian empire. It was Nebuchadnezzar, the crown prince, acting for his ailing father, who achieved the conquest of Carchemish and drove the Egyptians back. All right, Egyptian armies back home in 605 BC. It says, so all of this history is going to come prominent when I start reading about the king Josiah. It says, and the king Nebuchadnezzar had returned to Babylon in the spring of the same, and it died, right, in 605 BC. Okay, so that's pretty much it on that one. Okay, so next piece of information I'm going to get into is the downfall, right, of Judah and the exile of Babylon. Now, what you're going to find out is there's a lot of repeating themes, right, and repeating of stuff that's already been said, but that's how you learn anyway, man. All right, so it says the downfall of Judah, exile to Babylon. It says in the series of the Good News examines. In this series, the Good News examines the archaeological finding. That's what they're calling it, right? Archaeology is bad news for them, archaeological finds and confirms that and clarifies the historical records of the Bible. It says several earlier articles discuss the time that the divided kingdom of Israel, and after they split into the kingdoms of Israel and kingdom of Judah after the death of King Solomon. The two articles, so we go into that. We know about that. So let's go into the the points, the major points. All right. So this is, it says, after Hezekiah's death, his son Manasseh inherited the throne. It wasn't long before the young king, right, departed from his father's righteous example and exposed himself to as a wicked ruler. It says Manasseh was 12 years old, right, when he became king, and reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. So Manasseh seduced, right, Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to move more wicked, right, to move in a more evil than the nations whom the Lord had destroyed, right. And the Lord spoke unto Manasseh and his people, but they would not listen. Therefore the Lord brought upon them the captains of the army of the king of Assyria, who took Manasseh with hooks, right, and bronze fetters. It says the two Assyrian records corroborate Manasseh's submissions to the Assyrians. It's a biblical biblical narrative describes the king Manasseh as being carried off with hooks, right? May refer to the nose rings, etc., etc., etc. Okay, mighty capital of a mighty empire. It says the Assyrians, with Nineveh as its capital, appeared invincible at the time, right? James Murr graphically describes this empire at the time of Nahum, 668 BC, and says Assyria's expansion across Western Asia could have been likened unto an octopus with tentacles stretched out from the Gulf, right, out to the Nile, etc., etc. But it says, this is the third paragraph down. It says, after its destruction in 612 BC, right, this mighty metropolis, the ancient world, vanished from view, right. Nineveh disappeared so quickly from sight, according to the author, that when the Greek general Xenophon, right, and his 10,000 soldiers passed over the site of this famous reconnaissance of the Persian Empire, he did not realize the ruins of Nineveh underneath his feet, right? What had happened when Nineveh was put to torch, everything was burnt, right, and gradually was left to become an artificial mound, right, covered with grass. All right. Let's go to the prominent piece now. It says the fall of Jerusalem, right? It says the Bible accounts, right, of the conquest of Jerusalem is also confirmed by Babylonian records. It says, first, let's notice the biblical records. It says, after the Lord of their fathers was sent, and the Lord, right, power of their fathers sent warnings to them by his messengers rising up early, which is what we're doing right now. You get the elves pushing out videos at any time of the day, man. Get brothers underneath them pushing out videos at any time of the day, warning you what's coming to this future, in the so-called near future, man. Okay, so it ain't nothing new, man. And it says, because he had compassion for his people and upon his dwelling place, but they mocked, just like how they're doing right now, and the messengers of the Most High, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, etc., etc., and scoffed at his prophets. Now, what are they doing right now, man? They're scoffing, man. That's what the scripture says within the book of 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, the 3rd verse, right? Beholding the last, but this they are willingly ignorant. But the scripture really I wanted to say was, beholding the last day shall come scoffers walking after their own lusts. Yeah, that is 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, right? Saying, where's the promise of his coming? In fact, let me get that right quick, man. No, we're in the history lesson, but we're still gonna deal with the prophecies, man. Right? So this is 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter. Okay, knowing this verse and the 3rd verse, that he shall come in the last days, scoffers walking after their own lust. So ain't nothing new. Okay, right? And let's get back into this article. The wrath of the Lord arose against his people till there was no remedy. Therefore he brought against them the king of the Chaldeans. Okay, and that account is written within the book of 2nd Chronicles. Okay, the 36th chapter and the 15th verse. Okay, so and the Lord of their father sent to them messengers rising up rising up bedtimes, sending, and because he had compassion on his people and their dwelling place, but they mocked, okay, the messengers of the Most High and despised the word and misused his prophets, rather more, until the wrath of the Most High, right, wrath of Yahweh Shemi Shai arose against his people till there was no remedy. Okay, therefore he brought upon them the king of the Chaldees, who slew their young men with the sword, and in the house of the sanctuary, and had no compassion upon the young men and the maiden, right, and of that which stooped of age, right, and he gave them into his hands. So that's coming again real soon, man. All right, that's coming again real soon. It says, and they burnt their, and they, right, it says, then they burnt the houses of the Lord and broke. This is back in the ark, by the way. Then they brought the house of the Most High, the temple, and brought down the walls of Jerusalem and burnt all of his palaces. Oh wait, hold on. Yeah, that's. I mean, I'm reading two accounts here of the same thing. Okay, you can read it in Second Chronicles. I'm reading from the ark, but you can really read it from there. It says, and they burnt the temple and brought down the walls of Jerusalem and burnt all the palaces with fire. All right, and destroyed all of his precious possessions, and those who escaped from the sword, he carried away to Babylon, and where they became servants to him and his sons until the rule of the kingdom of Persia, to fulfill what was written by the mouth of Jeremiah. Okay, and it says, and Jerusalem was actually conquered twice. Right, the city was captured but not destroyed. Later it fell in the second time in 587 BC. Right, because when it was destroyed as the Bible described, and it says, and the city was put to torch, in its palaces and its temples and its walls demolished. And the Bible faithfully describes both defeats, but does not specify when the city was conquered the first time. Okay, I don't know how accurate that statement is, but I'll run with it for just for now. It says in 887, right, several Babylonian tablets with archaeological codes of Babylonian chronicles were deciphered and provided dates of the reign of many Babylonian kings. And it says more tablets deciphered in 1956 gives the dates of Nebuchadnezzar's reign and activities. Regrettably, one tablet is missing that could account for the 594 to 557 BC, right? Other than this gap, the tablets document his reign. Okay, let's jump down to the next paragraph. It says, exile to Babylon, right? Like the Assyrians, the Babylonians distorted, right, and vanquished the people to maintain a tighter control over their conquered territories. All right, and that goes into the scattering of the people when you go into the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and the 64th verse. It says, like the Assyrians, it says, as their cousins in the northern kingdom, the northern kingdom of Israel fell into captivity of Assyria more than a century earlier, Judah's inhabitants now were taken to Babylon. Right, the situation seemed hopeless, but Judah was devastated. Right, and the Babylonians forcibly removed most of its citizens. Yet, in spite of this situation, Yahweh Shai and his prophets encouraged the people not to give up hope and would one day return to their homeland. Okay, and you can read about some of those accounts within the prophecy. So that's the end of that marks the end of the sort of the generic pieces of information. So with that, I'm gonna get into the kings of Jerusalem that were prominent at the time. Maybe touch on a few precepts within the book of Second Kings or Chronicles, right, which chronicled the kings of Judah and Jerusalem. I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible. Let me check the count on the device. So it's been an hour 19, so I'll try to keep it underneath 2 hours or so. But it's all the spirit, so the spirit decide how long he wants. The Lord will decide how long he wants this to be. Okay, I ain't got nothing better to do. All right, so this is Josiah. All right, son of Amon, king of Judah, right? And he reigned from six. And I'm reading this because these were the kings that were around at the same time, so they was having certain interactions with the king of Assyria, but more importantly and more to the point, the king of Babylon, who succeeded the king of Assyria, man. Okay, but these things that were happening here, it accounts to the history too, man. All right, so it says Josiah, the son of Amon, king of Judah, when his father was assassinated, Josiah, then only 8, was proclaimed king, and his reign was marked by a great national revival. And the author of the book of the Kings the author of the book of the Kings is evaluated. Right, Josiah says, before him there was no king like him, nor did any arise after him. And that's accounted within the book of Second Kings too, because when this particular king was in place, if I briefly go through what was happening at the time, you had it to where you had the spiritual revival, man. Okay, because you have wicked kings that had ruled prior to his reign, man. Okay, the ones that come to mind, Amon, his father, he was wicked. Okay, in fact, one of no, I'm damn near mixing it up. But you had Hezekiah, which was righteous. Okay, all right, and you had his son Manasseh, which was sort of, he repented from his wickedness, and then you had Amon, all right, which was wicked. All right, but after that you had Hezekiah, which was furthermore Josiah, which was a righteous king, man. Okay, and there was no more righteous kings left in Israel after that, man. That's why we're in this fucked up position that we're in right now, because you haven't had no righteous leaders ever since that, man. That's why it says they would, and nor did any like him arise after him. Okay, that's in 2 Kings, the 23rd chapter, on the 25th verse. And it says in 2 Kings, the 18th chapter, on the 5th verse, in connection with Hezekiah, because he was likened unto Hezekiah in that. It says Josiah not only acted as the king, right, of a completely independent Judah, but his kingdom extended northward into erstwhile Assyrian provinces of Samaria. All right, 2 Kings, the 23rd chapter, and 19th verse, and says archaeological discoveries in the 1960s brought to light a new facts about Josiah's expansion. Following archaeological findings, right, in the scriptures, it says it became quite clear, right, Josiah established feudal estates, right, on the shores of Philistia, right. Unwalled settlements of the time of Josiah were discovered in the south and the east of Gaza, right. It says, in the eastern part of Judah. It says excavations uncovered the town of En-Gedi. It says Josiah, and that's in Joshua the 15th chapter, on the 62nd verse. And it says, which had been founded at the time of Josiah as a balsam plantation of the king. All right. It says during Josiah's reign, Jerusalem developed greatly because he was righteous, man. And it says, and it is at this time that a new wall was built on the eastern slopes of the city, and so the walls that they were talking about, how Jerusalem was under siege and they took down the walls. Well, those walls were built by the man Josiah. So when they was doing their wickedness, man, they sort of felt that, look, wait, hold on, who's gonna take down these walls? But see, what they didn't realize was those were physical walls, man. It was actually the spiritual walls that the Most High had bound around the city, to where these heathens couldn't really break through that, man. Right? To sort of put that in, to sort of coin that, that's not, actual factual, but the statement is somewhat true, because you didn't have it to where people were coming up and rising up against the kingdom and succeeding to seize Jerusalem when you had kings like Hezekiah and Josiah on the scene. All right, so the people went up, his descendants, when they were in power, they sort of felt that the physical walls was going to protect them because they was doing all of that wickedness. But they found out, by the time we get down to Zedekiah, okay, they quickly find out that those are just walls, man. All right, and how Babylon done took those down. Okay. So let me carry on with this. It says, Um, right, so he says, and were constructed which served mainly as industrial and commercial centers, and says remains of the buildings of the walls discovered in the Jewish quarters of the old Jerusalem proved that the city expanded even more to the west. It says the extent of Judah's uh, um, rather more. Let me move on to the next paragraph. It says the borders of Judah as presented in this list undoubtedly go back to the times of Josiah and remained until the destruction of Jerusalem. Okay, so it goes into the different cities and all of that. All right, so let's move on to the important parts as dealing with the king Josiah. All right, so it says here, right, the stamp jars. Right, it says the territorial expansion was accompanied by a religious upsurge, which found expansion mainly in cultic reform, right, including the purification of worship, right, in Judah as well as in the northern areas, and the centralization of the legitimate worship of this in Jerusalem, and the publication of an authorized and the authorization of the Torah, right, discovered in 18th century by Josiah, right, and in 625 BC, and it says, which ultimately turned the book into the main vehicle for the Jewish religion. Okay, it says these scriptures, this religious spiritual enterprise, though reflecting the inner development of the Israelite religion, were conditioned by the contemporary political events and especially by the gradual decline of the Assyrian Empire in Assyria and the acquisition into Chim. I don't even know how to pronounce that word. All right. And it says it was compelled by its strenuous wars with Asia Minor, and then by the enormous efforts of the pacifying the rebellious Babylonians and the independent people to the south of whom were supported them to relax its hold on Palestine as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it to within that article. So the main things to take away is the religious reforms, man. Okay, now let's find the exact exact part of what happened at the time. So let's go to the book of 2 Kings, the 23rd chapter. We can probably start from the top. Right, so this is 2 Kings, the 23rd chapter, on the first verse, and it says, and the king sent, and he gathered unto him all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem. And the king went into the house of the Lord, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, and the priests and the prophets, and all the people, both small and great. And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant, which was found in the house of the Lord. And the king stood by a pillar and made a covenant before the Lord to walk after the Lord after Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, and keep his commandments and his testimonies and his statutes with all their heart and their soul, to perform the words and the covenant that were written in the book. And all the people stood by the covenant. It says, and the king made Hilkiah the high priest and the priests of the second order and the keepers of the door to bring forth out of the temple of the Lord the vassals that were made for Baal and for the groves and all the hosts of the heavens, and burnt them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel. And it says, and they put down the idolatrous priests whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places and the cities of Judah and in the places about Jerusalem. Right, and it says, and them also that burnt incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to all the hosts of heaven. You got Jake's doing that now today as well. All right, and we're like the spiritual Josiah is coming back to put those spiritual reforms there, but you're gonna have it to where certain Jakes, they're just not gonna get it, man. they're just not going to want to turn away from their idols. So the Most High is going to destroy them. And it says, and he brought out of the grove from the house of the Lord without Jerusalem unto Kidron, and burnt it in the brook of Kidron, and stamped it small to powder, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the children of the people. And he says, and he break down the houses of the Sodomites, where by the house that were by the house of the Lord, where the women wove hangings for the groves. All right, and it says, and he brought all the priests of the cities of Judah, and defiled the high places where the priests had burned incense, right, from Geba to Beersheba, and he break down the high places of the gates that were in the entrings of the gates of Joshua, right, the governor of the city, which were on the man's left hand on the gate of the city. It says, nevertheless, the priests of the high places came not up to the altar of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua in Jerusalem, but they did eat of the unleavened bread among their brethren. It says, and he defiled Topheth, which was in the valley of the children of Hinnom, right? And that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire of Moloch. Let's just pause there for a second. And there's a good sit down out there by the brothers out there in Dallas, and they go into the breakdown of hell, because basically what you had it to it, and I believe one of Hezekiah's brothers, okay, many generations, a few generations before the man Josiah, who we're reading about right now, okay, one of his brothers had his father basically got to be put through the fire, man. It's a child sacrifice right here in the valley of Hinnom, which is where you get the sort of called connotations to people burning there forever and so on and so forth, because that was actually happening. You actually had Jake's sacrificing their children in the valley of Hinnom, right, as child sacrifices, man. But hell, really, they ain't there isn't no hell within the scriptures, man. That's non-existent. Okay, what you have is a judgment that the Most High is going to play out by way of fire, namely those ICBM nuclear missiles upon America, man. Which is clear cut, simple. That's a lesson for another time. But like I said, you can check out that sit down by the brothers out there in Dallas, man. Okay, it says, and he took away the horses that the kings of Judah had given to the sun, right, at the entering in of the house of the Lord. And it says, in the chamber of Nathan Melech, right, and the chamberlain, right, which was in the suburbs, and burnt the chariots of the sun with fire. Okay, so it goes on a bit, but pretty much, man, this was a righteous king. It says, and as Josiah turned himself, he spied the sepulchres that were in the mountains, sent and took the bones out of the sepulchres and burnt them upon the altars and polluted it, all right, according to the word of the Lord, which the man of the Most High proclaimed, who proclaimed these words. All right. So I read that basically to show you that was talking about this whole all of these religious reforms was dealing with the man Josiah, who we are reading about here right now. Okay. Right. So let's read about the significance. This is the same document dealing with Josiah. It says the significance of the reform. It says Josiah's death probably brought an end to the reforming efforts, and in any event, the state of Judah fell in 586 BC. And it says the reform found its full implementation beginning in the Persian period, which saw the reconstruction of the temple in 520. It says that temple stood as the only Jewish sacrificial shrine in the land of Israel for 600 years until the destruction in 70 CE by the Romans. Ultimately, of an even greater significance for the history of Judah was the relocation of the divine revelation. Okay, thanks to Josiah's circle, the Jews began to seek Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, right, in the book of the Torah. It says the pledge of the people to observe the law as it is written in the book brought about a metamorphosis in the Israelite religion. Okay, I laugh because they put that word religion in there, because it's not really religion. That's our heritage, man. All right, it says to observe the law, all right, meant that they had to study it. As a result, the Second Temple period saw the rise of scribes and scholars alongside of the temple, all right, as well as the gradual eclipse of prophecy. It says, by the time the destruction of the Temple came, other sacred books had joined the Torah to make up the Holy Scriptures. All right, whose studies exposition led to the crystallization of the rabbinic Judaism, right? Which survived 2,000 years. And says, so the next bit says the death of Josiah. It says the death of Josiah. It says Assyria, weakened by her struggle with Babylon, right, found the Egyptians as its allies. It says the Egyptians went up to the north to help us, the Assyrians, right, but to no avail. It says after Nineveh fell in 612, right, the Assyrians army was consolidated. So if I just pause there, now you can sort of see what, how I'm sort of moving with this time. And so, we read the sort of generic information. Now we sort of went back in time, which now we're at the scene where Assyria is weakened. Okay, the Babylonians are coming into power. We're seeing what's happening now within Jerusalem. That's what we're dealing with now. What is happening here in Jerusalem at the point that Assyria is weakened and the Babylonians coming into power? And what you're seeing is you having religious reforms, okay, spiritual reforms, okay, people are turning back unto the Lord, all right. But you're gonna see by way of the next king, all right, that Jake is hard-headed, man. That lost the generation of one king, and then the next king, the son of Josiah comes up, and they're all wicked, man. All right, to the end that we went into captivity by way of the Babylonians, man. Okay, it says the Assyrian army consolidated its position in the western part of the empire. It says in Haran and Kirkemish. It says this time they were assisted by the newly enthroned king Necho II, son of Pasameticus, all right, who in the summer of 606 marched with a large force to help the Assyrians retake Haran from the Babylonians. Josiah went to Megiddo to meet Pharaoh, who killed him there. It says, according to 2 Chronicles, the 35th chapter, the 20th verse, Josiah ignored the Mosai's word and engaged in Necho in battle, but the account is rather more. I'll read on to the next bit because that's a bit 11 right there. But let's go to the next bit. It says 2 Kings, the 23rd chapter, and the 29th verse says that only that Necho put Josiah to death as soon as he saw, all right, him, and gives no account of the battle, nor any motives of Necho's actions. His Josiah's death, especially in light of the subsequent events, was considered as a heavy loss for the nation, and as may be learned from 2 Chronicles, the 35th chapter, on the 24th verse. And it says, all Judah and Jerusalem held mourning rites for Josiah, and singers have spoken of Josiah in their laments to this day, right? And have made these a rule in Israel. Okay, so that's pretty much it on dealing with Josiah. So now you're getting a picture of what was happening at the time of the fall of Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, at the time of the rise of the Babylonians. Okay, so now let's deal with the king that they mentioned there, which was Necho. All right. So it says here Necho, right, or Pharaoh Necho, an Egyptian king mentioned not only in the scriptures but in the Herodotus, all right, who says that he was the son of Pasamaticus, king of Egypt, and that having succeeded him in the kingdom, he raised great armies and sent out great fleets, as well as on the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea, and he expanded the vast sum of his many thousands of lives in a fruitful effort to unite the Nile on the Red Sea by a canal. All right, that was the first to send ships wholly around Africa. It says Josiah, king of Judah, being tributary to the king of Babylon, opposed Necho, right, of his first expedition against Nebuchadnezzar, and gave him battle, where he received the wound, right, of which he died. It says Necho pressed forward without making any long stay in Judea, and on his return from the Euphrates, where he had taken and garrisoned the city of Kirkemish in 610 BC, and says he halted in Riblah in Syria, sending sending for Jehoahaz of the Jews to be disposed uh, to sending for Jehoahaz of the Jews, he disposed him, and loaded him with chains, and sent him to Egypt. So if I just I paused there. Okay, so what you had was when the man Josiah was killed at the Battle of Megiddo. Okay, where you had it to where his son, right, Jehoahaz, took the throne, but he reigned 3 months before, Necho, the king of Egypt, basically took him out of that position of power and set up his own king, right, which was Jehoiakim, a vassal king. Okay, I believe he's going to say that here, and says, and loaded them with chains and sent him into Egypt. Then coming to Jerusalem, he set up Eliakim or Jehoiakim in his place, and exacted payments of 100 shekels. In other words, he started taxing Jerusalem quite heavily. It says, and accompanied, and the accompanying cut from the great tomb of the kings in Egypt, right, explored, right, all of that, so etc. etc. It says, so that's pretty much it on that bit, man. So now you get what's the next sort of piece to the puzzle, the historical puzzle. You had Josiah. Josiah was righteous, right? He had this wicked son, Jehoahaz, who reigned 3 months, and then he was taken out of power by Necho, the king of Egypt, right? And Necho, the king of Egypt, set up Jehoiakim, all right, in his place. Okay, so let's read about Jehoahaz a little bit, all right, just a little bit, because there's not much history. It's only 3 months, right? So it's just Ahaz, okay, Jehoahaz. It says, a king of Judah, son and successor to Josiah, right, reigned 3 months and was disposed, right, 608 BC, right, called Shalom, right, in Jeremiah, the 22nd chapter and 11th verse, and Chronicles the third chapter and the 15th verse, and it says, and the story of his reign is told in the 2 Kings, the 28th chapter, and 23rd chapter, and the 30th verse. So let's just scroll down to that because it's already on the screen. Okay, so so if we so it's basically telling you there. So it says, in the days of this Pharaoh Necho, right, king of Egypt, all right, went up against Syria, right, to the river Euphrates, all right, and the king Josiah went up against him, and he slew him at Megiddo, when he had seen him, and his servants carried him in a chariot, dead from Megiddo, and brought him to Jerusalem and buried him in his own sepulchre, right. And the people took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and anointed him king, right, made him king in his father's stead. And Jehoahaz was 23 years old, and he began to his reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Mehutal, and he did that which was evil, right? So within the space of this dude reigned 3 months, okay? This dude reigned 3 months, right? And it says he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that. It says, according to all that his fathers have done. When it's saying his fathers have done, it's not talking about Josiah here. It's actually talking about the forefathers, man. Okay, dealing with kings like Amon, okay, which was one of the kings of Judah. Okay, he was wicked. Okay, you had Ahaz, right? He was wicked. Okay, I'm just quoting a few examples there. You didn't really have, you didn't really have too many righteous kings in Judah and out there in amidst them kings of Israel too. Okay, so let's read on a little bit more of this to corroborate with what I've just read here within the article. So it says, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his fathers have done. Okay, it says Pharaoh Necho put him in bands at Riblah in the land of Hamath, that he might reign in Jerusalem, and put the land to tribute of 100 talents of silver and the talent of gold. It says Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim the son of Josiah, right, another son of Josiah here. So we're dealing with the second son, another the second ruler here being another son of Josiah. Okay, the king Eliakim, the son of Josiah, king in the room of Josiah, right, his father, and turned his name to Jehoiakim, and took Jehoahaz away, and he came took him to Egypt, and he died there. Okay, so it says Jehoiakim gave. So we'll deal with Jehoiakim's bit in a second. I'll just finish off with Jehoahaz here in this article. So it says here, right. So let's read this. It says, on his death of his father, which threw the realm into confusion, he, though a younger son, all right, was raised to the throne, right, by the people of the land, right. And it says, and the same who succeeded the ascension of his father. It says, see under Josiah, it says, perhaps as the upholders of the sterling of the old Davidic idea, he which his father had carried out so well, they saw him in a better hope of integrity than his older brother Jehoiakim, right, Eliakim, whose tyrannical tendencies may already been too apparent. It says the prophet also seems to have set store by him, if we may judge by his sympathetic mentions of him in Jeremiah the 22nd chapter and 11th chapter, and Ezekiel the 1st chapter and the 3rd verse. His career was too short, however, to make any marked impression of his history in Judah. Okay, so that's pretty much it dealing with Jehoahaz. Okay, let's move on to the next king that was that was around about the time of the switching from the Assyrian kings into the Babylonian kings. All right, so this is dealing with Jehoiakim. Okay, and then I believe after that it should just be there's two more. It's Jehoiachin, but there shouldn't be too much on that. And then Zedekiah, and then we just got the stuff dealing with Jeremiah, man. So we nearly finished this thing. Sorry, see if I can knock it back in the sort of next half an hour or so. So this is entering, yeah. So that's just in the next sort of half an hour or so should be appropriate. Okay, so I whiz through this bit. This is dealing with Jehoiakim. Okay, it says called Eliakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah. After the disposing of Jehoahaz, Pharaoh Necho set Eliakim, his older brother, upon the throne and changed his name to Jehoiakim. Right? It says 4 years Jehoiakim was subject to Egypt. And it says when Nebuchadnezzar, after a short siege, entered into Jerusalem, took him prisoner and bound him in fetters to carry him into Babylon. And it says, and took also of the precious vessels of the temple and carried them into the land of Shinar. So you should be getting a picture now. You should be getting a picture now. That should, be hitting home now. Okay, what's happening? You say, Josiah was the king at the end of the Assyrian Empire. Okay, entering in of after Josiah died, you had it to where his son, who was it? Jehoahaz was in power, and then he was, subsequently taken out of power. And Jehoiakim was put in power by the Egyptian king Necho. Okay, but then Necho was taken down, was put subjects underneath Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and the king of Babylon takes away the king Jehoiakim and puts him into chains and takes him into Babylon, man. Okay, you should be getting that picture now. Okay, this is Nebuchadnezzar, after a short siege, entered in Jerusalem, right, took the king prisoner and bound him in fetters of iron to carry him into Babylon, and took also some of the precious vessels of the temple, of which we've read about within the book of Daniel, the 5th chapter right now. Okay, and says Jehoiakim became tributary, right, to Nebuchadnezzar after the invasion of Judah, and continued so 3 years, but at the end of that time broke his oath of allegiance and rebelled against him. Alright, that's in 2 Kings 24th chapter on the 1st verse. So let's jump to that right quick. Okay, 2 Kings 34:1. It says, in the days of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years, and he turned and he rebelled against him. It says, and the Lord sent against him the bands of the Chaldeans, right, the bands of the Syrians, and the bands of the Moabites, and the bands of the children of Ammon, right, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the word of the Lord, on which he spoke to by his servants the prophets. It says, surely at the commandment of the Lord came this upon Judah, to remove them out of his sight for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did. It says, also for the innocent blood that they shed, right, for they filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, which the Lord would not pardon. Right, now the rest of acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did are not written in the book of the Kings of Chronicles. So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, right, and his son Jehoiachin reigned in his stead. Okay, so it says there, back in the history, it says, who cruelly harassed the whole land, either in an engagement with some of the forces of, or else by the hand of his own oppressed subject. Jehoiakim came to a violent end in the 11th year of his reign, right, and his body was cast out. Bear with me. Right, and his body was cast out ignominiously out into the ground, and he was dragged away and buried with the burial of an ass, and without pomp and lamentation beyond the gates of Jerusalem. That was spoken about within Jeremiah 22nd chapter. It says, all accounts we have of Jehoiakim occur in ascribing him as a vicious and irreligious character. Right, it says, and the reign of Jehoiakim extends from 609 to 659 BC. So that's pretty much all the points I wanted to hit on that. Okay, just one thing I want to clarify though, if I can find the exact point. Bear with me, Salakia. Because they mentioned something in there, but I don't know how on point that is. I mean, I'll stick with it for the time being. Okay, so the next person that was in rulership now, as mentioned in the previous article, was Jehoiachin. And this individual also reigned about 3 months, and he was the son of Jehoiakim, okay, making him the grandson of Josiah. All right, and this is during the time of the Babylonians again. Okay, so it says Jehoiachin, okay, son of Jehoiakim, right, for 3 months and 10 days, king of Judah, right, at the ascension of Jerusalem, was quite defenseless and unable to offer any resistance to the army of Nebuchadnezzar, which Nebuchadnezzar sent to besiege it. Okay, and it says, in a very short time Jehoiachin surrendered at discretion, and he and the queen mother and all the servants and the captains and the officers came out and gave themselves to Nebuchadnezzar, and who carried them away, right, with their harem, right, and the eunuchs to Babylon. It says, you can read about that. Read about that in Jeremiah the 29th chapter, right quick. Just want to 29 1. Okay, this is Jeremiah the 29th chapter, and the first verse. It says, and now these are the words of the letter of Jeremiah, the prophet, sent from Jerusalem unto the residues of the elders that were carried away captives, and the priests, and to the prophets, and all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had carried away, and all the captives of Jerusalem. After that, Jeconiah, which is also Jehoiakim. Let's just prove that to you, lest any scoffers come out there, because you know them unlearned men at the Purple Dinosaur Church, they're always watching, seeing to, to try to catch us out. That's not how I do it. I do it again. That's the one. Okay, so this is going to show you that this is talking about Jehoiachin. Chin. You should do, at the very least. Right, son of king of Jehoiakim. So we know that's talking about the same individual. Okay. Okay. Right, you know that's talking about the same individual. Okay, let's go back to this now. This is Jeconiah, which is also known as Jehoiachin. Okay, right, and the queen, the king and the queen and the eunuchs and the princes of Judah and Jerusalem and the carpenters and the smiths were departed from Jerusalem. Okay, let's read that again in the book of Daniel, the first chapter, I believe it's in as well. Right. So it says, in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, came that Nebuchadnezzar unto Jerusalem and besieged it, and the Lord gave Jehoiakim into his hand with the parts of the vessels of the house of the Lord, which he carried into the land of Shinar, right, to the house of his God, right, and he brought the vessels into the treasure of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of the eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and the king's seed, all right, the king's seed, who's the king's seed? Jeconiah, which is also Jehoiachin, right, and all of his priests, and the children in whom there was no blemish, and well favored, and skillful with wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding of science, okay, and such as had the ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom that he might teach the learnings of the Chaldeans. Right, it says, and the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat. All right, and it reads on, and you start reading about Daniel and so on and so forth. All right, so this is back in the history of Jehoiachin. All right. It says that Nebuchadnezzar sent to besiege it, and in a very short time Jehoiachin surrendered at discretion, and he and the queen mother and all the captains came out and gave themselves up to Nebuchadnezzar, who carried away in the harem of the eunuchs. All right, and he remained a prisoner, actually in prison, wearing prison garments for 36 years, till the death of Nebuchadnezzar. All right, and it says. When evil Merodach succeeding to the throne of Babylon brought him out, right, of the prison, he made him sit at his own table, right. The time of his death is uncertain. Okay, so that's pretty much that on that individual. So this is dealing with the last king of Judah in Zedekiah. Okay, so. This is Zedekiah now. Yeah, and like I mentioned before, this is one of the sons of Josiah as well, because you had, Josiah had it to where three of his sons reigned and one of his grandsons reigned. So Jehoiakim, right, Jehoahaz, and Zedekiah. Okay, and Jehoiakim's son Jeconiah or Jehoiachin. He had a period of 3 months where he ruled as well. Okay, so it says the last king of Okay, it says the last king of Judah and Jerusalem was the son of Josiah, right, by his wife Mehutal, right, and therefore the brother of Jehoahaz, right, etc., etc. It says his original name was Mattaniah, and was changed to Zedekiah by Nebuchadnezzar when he carried away his nephew, right, Jehoiachin, right, Jehoiakim rather more, to Babylon, right, and left him on the throne. Okay, so after the grandson of Josiah, or the son of Jehoiakim, was carried away into Babylon, okay, Nebuchadnezzar set up Zedekiah, his uncle, in his place. Okay, and Zedekiah was about 21 years old when he was thus placed in charge of the impoverished kingdom. It says in 597, he's in 597 BC. It says his history contained in a short sketch of events of his reign in the book of 2 Kings, 24th chapter and 25th chapter, and with the trifling variations in in Jeremiah. See, that's 11 right there, right? But says in Jeremiah the 39th chapter and the 62nd chapter, together with the still shorter summary in Chronicles, right? And also in Jeremiah 21, 20, 24, 27, 28, 29, 32, 34, 37, 38, and Ezekiel 16, 11. From these it is evident that Zedekiah was not a man, was a man not so much bad at heart as weak in will. Is evidence in Jeremiah the 27th chapter and the 28th chapter that the earlier portion of Zedekiah's reign was marked by agitation throughout the whole of Assyria, right, against the Babylonian yoke. Okay, and this is Jerusalem seems to have taken the lead since the fourth year of Zedekiah's reign. With we find ambassadors from all neighboring kingdoms, Tyre, Sidon, Edom, and Moab, as at his court to consult as to steps to be taken. The first act of rebellion on any record survives was the formation of the alliance with Egypt, of itself equivalent to the declaration of enmity with Babylon. As a natural consequence, it brought on Jerusalem an immediate invasion of the Chaldeans. The mention of this event is in the scriptures, right? Though indisputable, it is extremely slight, right? And it occurs in Jeremiah the 37th chapter, and it says, and Ezekiel the 17th chapter. Okay, and let's just read on the next one. It says, Nebuchadnezzar at once sent an army to ravage Judea, right? This was done, and the whole country reduced except Jerusalem. And it says, and two strong palaces within the western plains of Lachish and Azekah, which still held out. Okay, this is Jeremiah the 34th chapter, called away for a time by an attack by Pharaoh and Egypt on the 10th day of the 10th month of Zedekiah's 9-year reign. Right, the Chaldeans were again before the walls. Jeremiah the 52nd chapter. From this time forward, the siege progressed slowly but surely to its consummation. The city was indeed reduced to its last extremities. It says bread had for long been consumed in Jeremiah 38:9, and all the terrible expedients had been tried, to which wrenched the inhabitants of the besieged town are forced to resort in such cases. So that's pretty much all that was that was going on in this individual's time. I mean, I could read on a little bit more on that, but that's pretty much the prominent bits that was happening. He basically incurred that injury by way of his actions, to where the whole city was ravaged. Okay, so now let's conclude. Okay, by basically going through some of Jeremiah's history, and that's pretty much, and I'll pretty much conclude it on there. I mean, you could really have this sort of somewhat in depth, really go for twice as much time as I've put there, but that should serve as I know it was certainly when I did it this way, that should serve, it should help. Hopefully it'll help. Hopefully it does help. Okay, and it should be hopefully it'll be of use. Okay, so it says Jeremiah the son of Hilkiah, right, prophet in the days of Josiah and his sons, right. In the case of no other Israelite prophet is information so full as in that of Jeremiah. It says the historical portion of the book of Jeremiah gives detailed accounts of the external life, evidently right, derived from eyewitnesses, right, and probably his pupil Baruch. Okay, it says Jeremiah's prophecies give an insight into his inner life, and it says by reason of their subjective qualities explain his character and inward struggle. Of the gentle nature, he longed for the peace and happiness of his people, instead of which he was obliged to proclaim his destruction. See, that's Esau for you. He'll put it in a way, it triggers on your emotions. Look, Jeremiah was a prophet of the Lord, okay, and his delight was to do the Lord's work. So if he had to curse out some dudes, guess what, man? He would have had some enjoyment cursing out them dudes if it was the right thing to do, man. And guess what? It was the right thing to do, man. Okay, so you gotta watch how some of these articles are written sometimes. I'm not so astute in picking up the bones as yet, but through the spirit of Yahweh Shimmy outside over time, I'll become even better at it. But some of them things you read them, it'll pull on your heartstrings, man. It says he longed for peace and respite for himself, but was long obliged instead to announce to his people of the coming terrors. Okay, a task that could not burden his heart, that could burden his heart with sorrow. Okay, again, Esau right in a way, pull at your heartstrings, all of that, as if to say the individual was actually like that, man. Okay, and he says he also had to fight against the refractory ones among them, and against their counselors and the false prophets and priests and princes. It says Jeremiah was born in 650 BC at Anathoth, right, a small town situated 3 miles north of Jerusalem in the territory of Benjamin, right, and he belonged to the priestly family. That's what they're saying. Some of this stuff I haven't checked out. It says probably the same one as the Ark of the Covenant that returned after GC. They're adding that in as well. I haven't checked that out. I can't concur with that. That's just been written there in the informations. Okay, it says right. Let's carry on. It says, and it says the family. It says in the 13th year of King Josiah, 626 BC, while still a young man, Jeremiah was called to be a prophet. It was just at this time that the plundering Scythian hordes, which troubled the Near Asia for decades in the second half of the century, swept past through the boundaries of Palestine on their swift horses to capture rich booties, right? Rich booty in the ancient civilized land of Egypt, and that's apparently in Herodotus, 164, apparently. And it says since he continued to prophesy until after the conquest and the destruction of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar in 586, Jeremiah's prophetic career covered a period of more than 40 years. Okay, it covered a period of more than 40 years. Okay, and you got individuals out here that come in here and they do this stint for like 6 months. Okay, and they run out of steam. And you know why they run out of steam? They run out of steam because they ain't the man of the Lord. Now I can only pray that through the Yahweh Shimmy outside, be a man of the Lord. Okay, but it's a damn shame if you do something that's supposed to be life changing, and it is life changing, because even if you spend a month in this thing, man, your life is never gonna be the same, man. Okay, you can't expect to return to the good old times, mentally, man. Okay, like the scripture says, and it was Hebrew 3rd chapter on the 3rd verse, maybe, to renew them again will put the Lord up into open shame, man. So they can't be renewed again, save that they come back on the other side, man. Let me see if I can get that precept right quick. If it's not this one, I won't search around for it. No, it's not that one. Anyways, but let's get back onto this history now. Right, so Jeremiah's prophetic career covered a period of more than 40 years. He says, although important events of this period are reflected in his prophecies, the publication of the Deuteronomic law. Okay, now let's pause there for a second, because it's saying here the publication of the Deuteronomic law. Well, we read about that. We read about that when we was dealing with the man Josiah. Okay, when Josiah was putting forth those religious reforms. Well, that's what that's talking about right here. And it says the religious reforms instituted by Josiah and his conquests. Right, the first deportation to Babylon. Right, that of just Jehoiachin or Jeconiah, right, and the final catastrophe right, of the Jewish kingdom in five. Rather more, let me read it again so I put the dates in there. So it says the first deportation to Babylon, that of Jehoiachin in 597, and the final catastrophe of the Jewish kingdom in 586 at the time of Zedekiah. And we just read about that. It says the strange to say, all these events, right, the publication of the Deuteronomic law, the religious reforms of Josiah are the least prominently brought out in his writings, because that had happened. But after his death, these dudes then so quickly turned away from the Lord. It was damn near incredible, man. All right, it says it's not in. So that's pretty much all I'm gonna read on that section of his history. Now let's go to certain the blue purple dinosaur camp won't like. So let's go to imprisonment and release and read about some of the what he had to go through, man. It says during the time of the king Jehoiakim, Jeremiah's removal of from Anathoth, right, to Jerusalem seems to have taken place a little before the time of Jehoiakim's ascension. Again, I can't verify that at the minute. Okay, it says at least he appears as the resident in Jerusalem under the king, right? Just as his sternness and his threat of impending punishment and already displeased his fellow citizen in Anathoth, right, to such an extent that they sought his life. Okay, and that's in Jeremiah the 11th chapter and the 19th verse. Let's get that right quick, okay? Because this puts you in the spirit of Jeremiah, man. Which we're all supposed to be in the spirit of Jeremiah, man. Okay, it's but I was like a lamb or an ox that is brought to the slaughter, and I knew not that they had devices against me, saying, let us destroy the tree with the fruit thereof, and let us cut him off from being off the land, that his name may be no more remembered. Because why? Because he was prophesying. He was actually prophesying the truth, man. You had all of these fake prophets telling them, look, Babylon ain't gonna come through here. They ain't gonna destroy Jerusalem. Jerusalem's gonna last X amount of years. And that's what these assholes are fucking doing these days, man. Okay, and guess what? Our life is gonna be like, some of the men in the Lord is gonna be like this. But we know the scriptures that some of these people, some of the prophets are gonna be beheaded for the witness of Yahweh Shai, man. Okay. So let's carry on with this. So it says I saw also in Jerusalem a general anger was soon aroused against them, and all of these kings that were here and the people underneath them were wicked, and they hated righteousness. And that should put it within your spirit to know that, look, to really bring out the truth, man, you're gonna stir up you're gonna rustle up a lot of feathers, man. Okay, if you're really doing this job properly, you're gonna rustle up a lot of feathers, man. Okay, it says it right. Jeremiah preached a sermon in the valley of Ben Hinnom against idolatry, right, in order to bring the utter and in order to bring an utter and a complete ruin of the kingdom of Judah more clearly before the minds of the hearers, right. He broke an earthen pitcher when immediately afterward he had repeated the same sermon in the temple court. He was put in prison by Pashur the priest in charge. Being liberated, however, on the next day. The following section gives more detail, and that's in Jeremiah the 26th chapter. You can read that for yourself back at home. It says, and when the people at the beginning of Jehoiakim's reign, in spite of the terrible loss they had sustained by the death of Josiah in the fortunate battle of Megiddo, which we read about, as a resulting establishment of the Egyptian domination, still took conform in the thought of the temple and of the protection which the sanctuary was the belief to afford. It says, Jeremiah stood in the temple court and called on the people to improve morally, all right, because they had descended morally after the death of Josiah. It says, otherwise the temple of Jerusalem would share the same fate as that of Shiloh, okay, because Samaria was destroyed. Okay, let me just check my facts. I believe Shiloh refers to that of the Assyrian not the Assyrian the northern kingdom, man. Okay, so let's go to Shiloh. All right. Um, try to find it. Might be mistaken in that, but hey, that's where we look out these things, man. Shiloh. Bear with me, bear with me. I just want to put my ducks in a row. Right, so it says these are the inheritances which Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun, right, and the heads of the fathers of the tribe of the children of Israel divided an inheritance by lot in Shiloh. Okay, so let's read again. Joshua, it says, and of the children of Reuben, the children of Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh returned and departed from the children of Israel and out of Shiloh. So I'm leaning towards my first thought there on that. But I mean, it's not neither here nor there. I just wanted to put that. I didn't want to say. And he ran a man from Benjamin out of the army and came to Shiloh the same day. So I just wanted to put my ducks in a row. And that might be incorrect in that statement, but I'm not too fussed at this stance. It's not the point of this one. But I had read that because it said it would share the same fate as Shiloh. It says, in the terrible excitement, the priests and the prophets cried out that Jeremiah was worthy of death. All right, and it says he was, because he had said, look, you seen what's happening out there, you got what happened out there in Shiloh and how it got destroyed and all of that. You're doing the same thing that they was, that happened there, man. Okay, you're gonna be destroyed. All right, which is pretty much what we're saying now. You're doing the same thing you had out there in Sodom and Gomorrah. But see, here's the thing: you've surpassed the point of a redemption. There's no turning back from the wickedness that Esau's done. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity, and all of that wickedness he's done, he's got to pay back for it, man. So there's no you got to repent, and like Nineveh, you can receive mercy somehow. That's just not going to happen. Okay, that's just not going to happen. All right, and it says he, however, acquitted. He was acquitted by the priests and the elders, who seem to have had great respect for the words of the prophet, especially in the view of the fact that the most of the prominent persons rose up and called to mind the prophet Michael, who had prophesied the same fate of the temple in Jerusalem. So I believe one of those one of the priests that was there said, look, we're coming up against Jeremiah and all of that, but the same fate. Micah had to do the same fate. He suffered the same injury, quote unquote. Okay. So I mean, I could carry on with with the history of Jeremiah a little bit, but pretty much you get the gist of what's happening. So let's conclude this bit. It says political attitude. It says during the time of Zedekiah, in the original roll, which was burnt by Jehoiakim, all right, which was probably included practically the prophecies contained in Jeremiah the second chapter to the 22nd verse. Jeremiah made not many positive demands concerning the political attitude of the kingdom of Judah. He had merely, in accordance with the principle laid down, he had merely, in accordance with the principle laid down by Hosea and Isaiah, declared Judah should not be taking any political stand of her own, and should follow neither Assyria nor Egypt, but should wait until the Yahweh Hashem Yahushai's commandments. But in the course of events, he felt impelled to take active part in the political affairs. All right, this was during the time of Zedekiah, who had been placed on the throne by Nebuchadnezzar, after the deportation of Jehoiachin. You read about, and we read examples of that already. It says advices of acceptance of yoke. Alright, it says when he in the 4th year of Zedekiah, ambassadors from the surrounding nations came to deliberate the king of Judah, concerning a common uprising against the Babylonian, right? A prophet by the name of Hananiah proclaimed in the temple the speedy return of Jehoiachin and his fellow exile. Because remember that dude in the 28th chapter, we read about him earlier. See how all of these things is linking up. Okay, all these different, we're reading from different articles written by different people, because they're writing about the scriptures and they're writing from different parts of the scriptures. It's all succinct, man. Okay, it says proclaimed in the temple, right, the speedy return of Jehoiachin and his fellow exiles. Okay, because that's what he was saying, man. He said they're going to return. Okay, Babylon's going to be done away with in 2 years, and that that didn't happen, man. Babylon destroyed Israel, man, and then subsequently Babylon was destroyed by the Medo-Persians, as spoken about within the book of Isaiah, the 13th chapter. Right, in the temple, the speedy return of Jehoiachin and his fellow exiles, as well as bringing back of the temple vessels which had been carried away by Nebuchadnezzar, supporting his prophecy by the announcement that the word of Yahweh Shai was to the effect that he would break the yoke of the king of Babylon. That's in the 28th chapter. So Jeremiah then appeared in the marketplace with a yoke of wood and counseled with ambassadors and the king Zedekiah and his people to submit voluntarily to the Babylonian power. It says when Jeremiah appeared also at the temple, Hananiah tore the yoke of his shoulder and repeated his prophecy of good tidings. It says Jeremiah likewise advised the exile in Babylon to settle there quietly, right, which caused one of them to write to the high priest in Jerusalem, directing him to fulfill his duty to watch over the madman in the temple and over everyone that maketh himself a prophet. And consequently Jeremiah was put in prison, right, and his stocks. You can read about it in Jeremiah the 29th chapter. So if I wrap up things, okay, we started off in Jeremiah the 28th chapter, and the Spirit had it to where we finished off in Jeremiah the 28th chapter, where if you're seeing the different nations, different heathenistic nations that had come up to the king Zedekiah, basically to try to compel him to rebel against the Nebuchadnezzar, man. Okay, and which led to what the subsequent complete destruction and devastation of Jerusalem, because them dudes was wicked. But we're dealing with both the history of Jerusalem, what's happening in Jerusalem now, and how what they did, and also you have to remember that Babylon was then later destroyed, and we read about that within the book of Daniel and all of that. So hopefully that should tie things up quite nicely, and I could call that somewhat of a stopping point. Yahweh Shimei Shai Rata, so there wasn't any bones in that. But if there was any bones, feel free to to place comments out there, and we could, everybody could build off of it. I ain't, I'm not, no top historian or anything. I did that to try to benefit myself, in terms of getting into it, and then hopefully, like the scripture says, iron sharpeneth iron. Iron sharpeneth iron. Hopefully, in trying to do that, hopefully somebody else will then, take note and do it, and really is supposed to do it better, so that I learn at the same time. But that's how you build blocks, man. You don't I've already I've laid the the foundation, quote unquote. You don't lay the same foundation, you build upon it, man. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna say all praises unto Yahweh Shimei Shai. Double honors to the apostles of GMS. Honest you brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity. Lord's will that was of edification. I'm gonna say shalom.